There are growing questions surrounding a worker's murder inside a Georgia State prison over the weekend.
Investigators say an inmate managed to get a gun inside Smith State Prison and then killed the kitchen staffer before turning the gun on himself. Tonight, investigators say they believe the inmate and victim had a relationship.
4:30 in the morning, a Sunday. The breakfast shift is just getting underway in the kitchen at Smith State Prison, Glenville, Georgia. 24-year-old Aureon Shaveya Grace clocks in, same as she's done for the past 5 months. Standing a few feet away is an inmate on kitchen duty, a man she had grown close to over the past several months, closer than either of them was supposed to. Within minutes, gunshots ripped through one of the most heavily fortified buildings in the state of Georgia. By the time the smoke clears, Aureon Grace is dead. The inmate, 34-year-old Jaydrekus Hart, has shot himself. And on a stainless steel counter nearby, investigators find a folded note written in neat blue ink, a note that's about to raise more questions than the Georgia Department of Corrections has answers for. How does a loaded firearm get inside a Supermax facility housing 500 of Georgia's most dangerous men? How does it sit there hidden for nearly a year despite multiple warnings? And how does a single mother, working double shifts to save up for nursing school, end up at the center of a murder-suicide inside a prison kitchen? This is the story of Aureon Grace. Welcome to Caught in the Web True Crime Stories. Kindly support us by subscribing to this channel and turn the notification icon.
Now in Georgia, officials say an inmate used a gun to kill a kitchen worker at a prison before fatally shooting himself. The Georgia Department of Corrections issued a statement saying that the agency is investigating the deaths at Smith State Prison. At this time, there are limited details, including how the inmate obtained a firearm, and those details have not been released. Now, the prison is a closed security prison that houses offenders considered violent, and it has the capacity for 1,500 inmates. This incident marks the second killing of a staff member at Smith State Prison in less than a year.
Before we get into the chaos of June 16, 2024, we need to talk about who Aureon Grace actually was, because in the days after this happened, a lot of the conversation drifted toward her relationship with an inmate, and very little focused on the person she was outside of that. Aureon Shaveya Grace was 24 years old, born and raised in Statesboro, Georgia. She went to Statesboro High School, graduated, and built her adult life right there in the community she grew up in. People who knew her describe a woman who was warm and genuinely present for the people around her, a laugh that pulled anyone into a room, and a smile her mother said belonged entirely to her. Aureon was a mother of two, a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. By every account, those two kids were the center of her world. Her family says she'd work 11, sometimes 14 days straight, no complaints, because her kids needed to be provided for, and she decided she was going to be the one to do it. But Aureon had a plan beyond just getting by. She was saving money to go to nursing school, something stable, something that would build a better future for her children.
She was a sister, she was a daughter, she was a mother, she was loved. She worked 11 days straight, 14 days straight, just to make money, to make sure she could provide for her kids. He's only 1 year old, so he's probably not even gonna remember his mother. She worked 11 days straight, 14 days straight, just to make money, to make sure she could provide for her kids.
In January 2024, she took a job with Aramark, the Philadelphia-based company contracted to run food services across Georgia's prisons. Her assignment? The kitchen at Smith State Prison in Glenville. Every day, she'd commute in from Statesboro, prep and serve meals, clock out, and drive home to her kids. It was a stepping stone towards something better. She'd only been there a few months when everything changed. Here's something critical to understand. By the time Aureon walked through the gates of Smith State Prison in January 2024, that facility was already in crisis. Smith State is a closed security men's facility built in 1993 in Glenville, Georgia, housing well over 500 inmates, people the state considers violent or escape risks. On paper, it's exactly what you'd picture for maximum security: reinforced fencing, armed watchtowers, and a front entrance with metal detectors everyone passes through. But there's also a rear delivery gate that hasn't historically used the same screening equipment. And in practice, that gap mattered. In February 2023, the warden of Smith State, Brian Adams, was arrested, charged with racketeering, bribery, falsifying statements, and violating his oath of office, all tied to a contraband smuggling operation running through the prison under his watch. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation took the case. Adams was fired.
Georgia prison warden is off the job tonight, charged for being involved in a smuggling operation at his prison. Brian Adams was the warden at Smith State Prison. That's southeast in Georgia, about 45 minutes south of Statesboro. He was fired Wednesday after the GBI charged him with conspiracy, a violation of oath, bribery, and RICO charges. Adams was promoted to warden at the prison in 2019. The Georgia Department of Corrections Commissioner Tyrone Oliver says he is disheartened by the arrest.
Our top story tonight, a crime ring run from inside the Smith State Prison has been linked to the warden.
We've learned that Brian Adams was fired by the Department of Corrections just before he was arrested yesterday.
Hearing tonight from state investigators that they believe this is essentially a story of incredible corruption from inside of this prison. Those investigators believe the warden, Brian Adams, was linked to a crime ring so violent that those investigators say that crime ring ordered a murder from inside of this prison. To understand how this now former warden has this mugshot, we have to dig into a case that dates back a decade. This is Nathan Weeks, the man who carried out a string of armed robberies in 2010, sent to prison in 2012, sent to Smith State Prison in 2019. Agents with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation believe Weeks became the leader of a powerful gang, which includes other inmates and prison guards. A crime organization so powerful, those investigators believe Weeks ordered a murder from inside the prison. It is the death of Bobby Kicklighter, killed in early 2021, that started the in-depth look into Weeks and this organization. State investigators now believe Kicklighter was the victim of a botched hit ordered by the Yves St. Lawrence squad inside the prison. These criminal indictments for Weeks and his gang also accused the Yves St. Lawrence squad of conspiring to kill someone else. The organization led by Nathan Weeks, according to investigators, relied on the work of at least 3 former prison guards, including Weeks' girlfriend, Keisha Jones. Jones is now facing charges for murder, but also, like Weeks and Warden Brian Adams, is charged with violating the RICO Act. That's Georgia's law that makes racketeering illegal. In these brand new arrest affidavits, the now former warden is accused of being part of the Yves St. Lawrence squad and taking money for it. The GBI says when Adams was asked, he lied. Tonight, the head of the Georgia Department of Corrections telling WSAV's investigative unit it is disheartened to learn about the former warden's actions, saying that Adams' arrest does not reflect the commitment of the department. Brian Adams bonded out of the Tattnall County Jail this morning. He is free on an $80,000 bond. Nathan Weeks, he has since been moved to another Georgia detention facility closer to Atlanta. It is worth noting that after the news of this arrest last night, there was a riot inside this prison so violent that 2 people had to be airlifted to a hospital in Savannah.
The person at the very top of the chain of command was allegedly part of the network bringing illegal items inside. Then, in October 2023, an inmate attacked and killed 42-year-old correctional officer Robert Clark inside Smith State, assaulted from behind with a homemade shank while escorting inmates. He didn't survive.
This morning, there is an investigation into the death of a Georgia correctional officer. An inmate is charged in the deadly attack. It happened at Smith State Prison, which is in rural southeast Georgia. Authorities say correctional officer Robert Clark was escorting 2 inmates when one assaulted him from behind with a homemade weapon. The other inmate stepped in to help Officer Clark, and that's when he was also hit. The 2 were taken to the hospital where Officer Clark later died.
It was the first fatal staff death at the facility in recent memory, and running underneath all of this, since September 2021, the entire Georgia Department of Corrections had been under an active federal civil rights investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice. So by January 2024, a former warden arrested for running contraband a correctional officer murdered, and federal investigators already examining the whole system. That's the environment Aureon walked into. And something else far more dangerous than anyone outside those walls knew had been moving through that facility since the summer before she even arrived. This is the most important part of the story, because everything that happened to Aureon traces back to a single object that entered Smith State roughly a year earlier, and a warning that was given and ignored before that object even arrived. In May 2023, civil rights advocate Brian Randolph, with the Human and Civil Rights Coalition of Georgia, received a tip. A firearm was going to be delivered into Smith State via drone. He contacted the GDC directly, sending a written message to the department's general counsel laying out exactly what he'd been told. The GDC's Office of Professional Standards investigated. No leads were developed. Case closed. Randolph says he never heard another word about it.
So we were tipped off in May of last year of a possible weapon that had been dropped off via a drone. We never heard anything else about it.
Weeks later, sometime between late June and early July of 2023, investigators later determined a handgun was thrown over the prison's outer perimeter fence. Whether it was the same weapon Randolph was warned about, we don't know. But the timing is hard to ignore. Once it cleared the fence, the gun moved through the prison's inmate network, handed from person to person, each handoff keeping it hidden from staff, until it eventually ended up with Jaydrekus Hart. By January 2024, the same month Aureon started her job, inmates with contraband phones were already photographing the gun and circulating the images. A loaded firearm documented on illegal phones the same month a 24-year-old single mother walked in for her very first shift. And then, the part that turns this from tragedy into something closer to a preventable catastrophe. On June 13th, 2024, just 3 days before the shooting, the GDC reportedly received confirmed intelligence that a firearm was concealed somewhere inside Smith State, not a rumor. Confirmed intelligence. In those 3 days, the weapon wasn't located. The person holding it wasn't identified. Nothing happened. 3 days later, Aureon Grace would be dead. Jaydrekus Hart was 34, incarcerated at Smith State since 2015. He was convicted in Carroll County for voluntary manslaughter and aggravated battery from a 2013 case, serving a 20-year sentence with a maximum release date of June 2043, nearly 2 decades away at the time of the shooting. Hart had earned a spot on kitchen detail, typically given to inmates whose behavior allows supervised movement outside their housing units. He was also reportedly active on social media while incarcerated, and since inmates aren't permitted phones at all, that tells you how deeply contraband had penetrated this facility.
My own bitch wouldn't even love me, but I ain't have my sweater right, them hoe wouldn't even fuck me. I be on some feed the foul shit. I know my mom proud of me. I know they cook real good. I just can't put down this shit. I do it real big, but they don't deny legit. Look at where I live. You know I can't stop.
It was on that kitchen detail that Hart and Aureon met. Sometime between January and June 2024, a personal relationship developed between them, something the GDC later confirmed publicly. It was a direct violation of policy that every prison employee is told about before their first shift. So why would someone violate it? By multiple accounts, Hart was charming and deliberate, and he had something most people on the outside don't have in abundance: time. Time to be consistent, to pay attention, to make someone feel like the most important person in a room. Inside an environment designed to be cold and impersonal, that kind of attention can start to feel real, even from someone serving 20 years for taking another person's life. We're not here to pass judgment on Aureon. What we can say with certainty is this: whatever this relationship was, it was happening inside a facility with an arrested warden, a murdered officer, an active federal probe, and a loaded gun circulating among inmates since the previous summer. Aureon had no way of knowing any of that. Act 5, June 16, 2024, Sunday, June 16, 2024. The night shift wraps up. The morning crew comes in, routine like always. Aureon arrives at the kitchen just before 4:30 a.m. to begin the breakfast shift. Jaydrekus Hart had kitchen duty that same morning. At approximately 4:30 a.m. without warning, Hart pulled out the gun that had been circulating through Smith State since the summer before and opened fire. Aureon was struck by multiple gunshots and collapsed. Officers and medical personnel responded within moments, but there was nothing to be done. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Hart then turned the gun on himself. He was found seriously wounded, transported to a hospital, and later died from his injuries. The 911 calls from that morning capture the chaos. "We have a gun in the facility. We had an offender get shot." Said there's 2 patients. Yes, there's 2 patients. They're both unconscious. She has a lot of blood loss right now. SOV News later obtained these tapes, noting shouting and confusion in the background.
Got shot. We got to go to the facility. We had an offender get shot.
You said you got an offender that got shot?
We have a gun in the facility. We had an offender get shot.
Well, Tina, you can hear shouting in the background and confusion as to what happened in the kitchen. Several people, quote, stuck inside that area with the gun. Take a listen. We want to warn some viewers. Some of this audio may be disturbing.
You said there's 2 patients?
Yes, there's 2 patients. They're both unconscious. She has a lot of blood loss right now.
She has a lot of blood loss?
Mayhem at Smith State Prison.
It was a food service lady that got shot. The offender who shot the 2 people, who shot, he killed himself, and the weapon has been secured. All units are to stay in their place and stay out of that kitchen. Do not enter this kitchen at this time. I repeat, do not enter that kitchen at this time.
Those employees asking one another what to do and who to call.
Kennedy wasn't answering. Call the warden or call Carver.
Susan Burns, founder of They Have No Voice, listened to this call. She says that tragic outcome is why she continues to advocate for prisoners and workers.
It's the worst thing I have actually ever seen that's related to a prison. And there's no one in charge. No one knows what to do.
Burns says gross understaffing is one of the most dangerous things in any prison.
And it just pulls back the curtain on the lack of training, the inability to communicate. The question of staffing again comes into this.
We've heard from other employees that the environment at Smith State is unsafe, some who were injured by inmates and are now suing the Georgia Department of Corrections. While there were rumors going around social media that Warden Jacob Beasley was suspended, News 3 reached out to GDC, who says he is still the acting warden and they will not comment on an active investigation.
The entire Georgia prison system was placed on lockdown. Smith State canceled all visitations. GDC investigators and local law enforcement secured the scene. And on a stainless steel counter inside that kitchen, investigators found a folded note written in neat blue ink. According to investigators, it read something to this effect. Ari, I told you nobody else gets your smile. If I can't see it, nobody will. I love you. Forgive me. Read that again. Nobody else gets your smile. If I can't see it, nobody will. That's not love. That's ownership. A man with nothing left to lose deciding that something he believed belonged to him wouldn't belong to anyone else, including Aureon herself. If, as some reporting suggests, Aureon had begun pulling away, that note suggests Hart simply wasn't willing to accept it. Deshonda Hagens, Orion's mother, didn't get a phone call from the GDC telling her that her daughter was dead. She found out through social media an inmate inside Smith State, using one of the same contraband phones used to photograph the gun months earlier, reached out to a family member shortly after the shooting.
Inmates were going through social media, looking on her social media to find people related to her.
Word spread online before any official notification. By the time GDC was ready to formally contact the family, Hagens and her relatives had already driven themselves to the prison and waited there for roughly 7 hours while investigators worked. When Hagens started speaking to press, her priority was unmistakable, and she stayed consistent on it ever since. My child is dead and there is no explanation for a firearm to be inside of a prison.
Child is dead, and it's no explanation for a firearm to be inside of a prison. Why didn't they search him when he left his dorm? Why didn't they search him before he came into the cafeteria? Why was none of those things done?
Why didn't they search him when he left his dorm? Why didn't they search him before he came into the cafeteria? Why was none of those things done? When reporters kept bringing up the relationship, Hagens pushed back every time. Regardless of anything, she was a mother. She loved her kids. She was a daughter. She was a sister. She had a heart. She wasn't a bad person. Who hasn't made bad decisions and stuff? That don't mean you deserve to die. And the line that cuts through everything. What does that have to do with having a gun to kill my child?
Regardless of anything, she was a mother. She loved her kids. She was a daughter. She was a sister. Like, she has family. She had a heart. She wasn't a bad person. Who hasn't made bad decisions and stuff? That don't mean you deserve to die. There is no way there should have been a handgun, an inmate with a handgun. And they're saying all these things about my daughter. Do they even know? Y'all, nobody knows the real story because she's not here to tell it. And I used to always tell her, you can't let everybody get close to you because when they see that you have a kind heart and you will help anybody, they'll take advantage of that.
Hagens also alleged that GDC investigators searched Aureon Statesboro apartment afterward and left it in shambles. Trash pulled from outside dumpsters and dumped inside, her grandchildren's belongings scattered. The GDC never publicly responded to that claim.
They destroyed my daughter's house. They took trash out of the dumpster in her apartment complex. All my grandchildren's stuff was in there, and they opened those trash bags up, left old food, trash, dirty diapers, all that stuff in my daughter's home.
But Hagen's interpretation was clear. She believed investigators cared more about building a story about who Aureon was than about how a loaded gun ended up in a maximum security kitchen. This was the second staff death at Smith State in less than a year, following Officer Robert Clark's killing in October 2023. Governor Brian Kemp and state officials announced a comprehensive review, contracting Guidehouse Inc., the Moss Group, and CGL companies for a year-long assessment of Georgia's correctional facilities. GDC Commissioner Tyrone Oliver pointed to progress, contraband initiatives, roughly $7 million seized statewide. But here's what those statements leave out. A firearm sat inside Smith State for close to a year before it killed someone. The first warning came in May 2023 and was closed without leads. By January 2024, the gun was being photographed on contraband phones. And 3 days before Aureon died, the department had confirmed intelligence the weapon was inside and still didn't find it. Advocates like Randolph and Burns point to the same root cause: understaffing. When a facility this size doesn't have enough personnel to follow through on intelligence, things move through the cracks until something catastrophic happens. Aureon Shaveya Grace was 24 years old, a daughter, a sister, and a mother who worked back-to-back shifts because she believed her kids deserved better and was building toward that one paycheck at a time. She took a job inside one of Georgia's most troubled facilities at a moment when its former warden had just been arrested for contraband, a correctional officer had just been murdered, federal investigators were circling the system, and a loaded gun was already inside, completely undetected. Whatever happened between her and Jaydrekus Hart, the through line DeShonda Hagens has fought to keep in focus is simple. A weapon should never have been inside that prison. Multiple warnings came and went, and 3 days before Aureon walked into that kitchen for the last time, the department knew the gun was somewhere inside and didn't find it in time. Her 2 children, 4 and 1 years old, are growing up without her. Her son, family says, likely won't even remember her. If this story affected you, let us know in the comments. Hit subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive. And as always, stay safe out there. We'll see you in the next one.